Welcome to this TV Tacoma Forum for Tacoma City Council District 4. I'm Noel Hagans of the League of Women Voters, Tacoma Pierce County, and I will be moderating. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization whose mission for the past 101 years has been to empower informed and active participation of citizens in government. Candidate forums are one of the many ways we do this. Anyone 16 or older can become a member of the League of Women Voters. For more information on our membership, go to our website at www.tacomapiercelwv.org. The candidate with us for this District 4 race is Nolan Hibbard-Pelly. Catherine Ushka and Israel James McKinney are not present. Welcome, Nolan. Thank you for being here. You have agreed to our ground rules, which in this situation seems irrelevant, but I will just ask you to agree on camera not to mention your opponents, but to stick to your own issues and points of view. So I assume you agree with that.
Of course. Thank you, Noel.
You'll have 2 minutes for an opening statement, 90 seconds for each question, 1 minute for closing statement. Our timekeeper is Susan Eidenschink, and she will signal you when you have 1 minute remaining, 30 seconds, 15 seconds, and when it's time to stop. At the final signal, you may finish a short sentence. I don't think that these time limits are going to be an issue today, but just read these for the point of consistency and in case we need them, but I doubt that we will. So now, Nolan, will you give us your opening statement for 2 minutes or slightly less than that? Thank you.
Sure. My name is Nolan Hibbard-Pelly, and I'm running for District 4 in Tacoma. I'm currently an elected student leader at the University of Washington, Tacoma, and I'm majoring in math and global honors. But I've also been going to events and enjoying the city for the past 3 years that I've been living here. And I'd like to live here a lot longer because it's where my family's from. And my grandpa grew up just down the street from me in the Lincoln District. So I have strong memories of visiting here all my life. I also have family in Olympia. And so I've been able to see how city councils operate in different cities and the values of a strong mayor system versus a strong city manager system, as well as learning from many advocacy groups in the area for what they recommend. And so that was one of the reasons I decided to run after learning all the different things that people would like to change in the city. I would like to represent that in my district. And personally, I'm a cyclist and a strong advocate for transportation for all people. I do not drive, but my girlfriend does, and I see how difficult it is to get around in Tacoma sometimes. So I would like to improve that in so many ways, from widening sidewalks for more pedestrian access to putting in better road signs and clear crosswalks so that it's not unobvious when you're able to cross in neighborhoods, as well as improving the greenery because I grew up as a landscaper, or the son of a landscaper, and I know the value of native plants in a district. And so I'd like to do everything we can to return Tacoma to its natural state and listen to the advisory of people that care about that and people that are impacted, the younger generations, from groups like 350 and Sunrise Tacoma, their constant advocacy for sort of a Green New Deal to replace current non-renewable jobs with.
All right, thank you. Thank you. We'll talk more. What specific programs will you advocate to promote racial justice in Tacoma?
Yes, I believe that racial justice is tied into every single form of government, from the representation on city council, whether or not the council members actually represent their district and talk to the people that live in it, to the policies that they enact, from housing to transportation policies that only serve certain sides of the city, to funding education depending on income, and the ongoing effects of systemic racism from Tacoma's past that continue, both with redlining and the history of the Asian expulsion to Puyallup. I'd like Tacoma to become an anti-racist city where people can feel comfortable to move without the fear of Proud Boys showing up at city events like yesterday, or any more terrible things going on with policing. So some policies that I'd advocate for are a CAHOOTS program that would reduce the strain on police for mental health priority calls, as well as getting more contact with the city from city council, rather than just listening to protests, actually being able to develop policies that represent the citizens' needs.
Thank you. Nolan, across the U.S. and here in Tacoma, we continue to see deaths of unarmed Black men at the hands of police. How should the City Council address the accountability of the police?
Yes, I believe it's very important for City Council to hold our police accountable, whether it's not increasing their funding while defunding other departments in the city, like the library and the fire department, which are important for everyone. I believe that the city needs to say sorry to the family of Manny Ellis and to many others that have suffered racist violence from the police department, from Eunice Hayes to family that live in other cities and are still impacted by this nearby, and the ongoing subtle violence when homeless members of our community are afraid of sirens and do not trust the police. I think the city needs to rebuild this trust and to have better connections with everyone that I don't think trust the city currently. So that involves charging all the officers that were involved in the death of Manny Ellis, all 6 of them, as well as calling for Ed Troyer to resign after his outbreak, and in the future, making sure that we have better representatives of our police department that put out a better image than there currently is.
And here's a follow-up question, Nolan. Collective bargaining agreements often control discipline of officers. What changes should the city seek in the provisions of these collective bargaining agreements to make officer discipline more timely and effective?
Yes. Currently, with our city council, only the city manager really negotiates in these collective bargaining agreements, and city council only gets to make a final vote. And I believe that the police union should be treated like any other union and have to actually be held up to their bargaining. So our city should actually bargain with the union rather than leaving it all to the city manager to do. We've seen in other cities when the city council actually holds strong to what the people are demanding, they're able to put in better deals with the police, whether it's keeping records for a longer amount of time after discipline or doing more steps for accountability. I believe body cameras are not everything we can be arguing for, to making sure that killer cops are held accountable and are not let on our police force, like in Lakewood, where they're able to kill again and again. We need to make sure that our police department is different, and I think that starts now.
Thank you. What specific steps can Tacoma take to improve the quality of our air, and why is that important?
Yeah, this is a great question right now. As we're seeing smoke come down from other cities, I think Tacoma needs to take steps to protect our greenery, as well as getting a better budget for our fire department, and making sure that our neighborhoods are safe from wildfires and from the effects of wildfires. In addition to that, I think there are ongoing consequences to what we have in our port with the transportation and storage of natural gas that is fracked in other states. We should move to greener alternatives that would reduce the amount of emissions that we're having in our city, as well as exporting through the port. It could only get worse if one of those tanks exploded. The fallout would be massive, and so we should push for stronger regulations, as well as finding alternative replacements that we could fund for the future. And for air quality, it always comes back to trees and greenery. In my neighborhood, I'm lucky to have Swan Creek nearby, but I believe we should create more parks in every neighborhood so that everyone has a walkable park that they can benefit from, especially when it gets hot like it was. Those areas are the coolest and have the best water quality as well for salmon streams.
Thank you. As housing in Tacoma becomes unaffordable for many, people are moving out into areas in the county that were previously farmland. How should the council respond to the need to provide affordable housing while preventing urban sprawl?
Yes, I believe the Home in Tacoma policy right now will impact everyone for the better through expanding the amount of available housing in Tacoma. In my neighborhood alone, I see lots everywhere that are empty and that people could be living in if they were not single family homes. Myself, I could not afford a house that I'm renting right now. And I think many others are struggling with that same thing. So I would like to stay in Tacoma, especially if the rents remained lower and housing remained affordable for many. I think that we need to support the development of more housing in our district, as well as denser housing and transport in the downtown area so that people can be closer to their jobs. I've heard from people in other districts where many people are commuting all the way to Seattle or other cities. And so we need to support that through transportation, but we also need to bring more jobs back to our city so that people live and work here at the same time, rather than commuting from other nearby cities and those suburbs. I believe that sprawl is dangerous, and we need to support the farms that are out there too by not encroaching on that farmland and allowing people to live in the same city that they were born and raised.
Thank you. Those with disabilities have suffered before and during COVID-19. How would you improve the conditions, accessibility, awareness, and quality of life for those individuals?
Yeah, I believe there's currently at least a consultant, if not counsel for the city on disability and like accessibility. But I think that city council should always be thinking about that in every decision they make, from doing sidewalks that people could actually walk on to making sure that our schools serve everyone in the community, to police response and making sure that it's safe for people to actually call the police, and many other things. I mean, I'll always listen to advocates, and I think, sorry, what was the question again?
The question is about quality of life for individuals with disabilities,
Yeah.
Issues prior to COVID and during COVID-19.
Yeah, I think also people are affected by the same quality of life standards that we are, whether it's transportation or air quality. And it always comes down to people with disabilities worse, whether their ACs are failing in the heat, or they don't have a way to get to their job. Many of the struggles, if we can increase their quality of life, will also impact everyone else positively. So I believe people should always be looking for how to support each other and increase that accessibility in our city.
Thank you.
And
the city created and financially supports the Neighborhood Council program. How will you involve neighborhood councils in creating and implementing your vision for the city of Tacoma?
Yeah, I've had the pleasure of going to my own local neighborhood council, but I would like to hear from others as well, how the city council can represent all of them. I think a lot of issues are similar around the city. There's like the want for connectedness, and for people to have good schools for their children, as well as wanting their unhoused neighbors to have somewhere to be and be able to be safe and have housing. And so I think city council should support these needs, and I'll always be listening to everyone in their neighborhood. I'd like to listen to voices that aren't represented as well, whether it's going to meetings outside of the city council, or talking to business owners that maybe don't live here but are still impacted by our policies as well. I'd just like to make sure that everyone feels like they have their voice heard on city council. And yeah, I think the neighborhood councils are a strong tool for doing that.
Thank you. This is a little bit of another follow-up question on housing. The Tacoma's Planning Commission has recommended initial growth scenarios for home in Tacoma. Low scale and mid-scale development in single family areas is being recommended. What are your views on that specific proposal, and do you have any new suggestions?
Yeah, I love the suggestions from the planning committee and how they've provided so many options. I think the full scale option for more housing would be better, and many people are worried about like incrementalism rather than changing everything all at once. They would like to have some hybrid approach, or some way to only partially change the housing code. But I believe that this chance only comes like once in a lifetime, really, unless we listen to the housing advocates more. I think it should be a decision that we do all at once, and look for a chance for generations to come to get housing, as well as changing how things currently are. Because I know well-built buildings don't come instantly. It's a process to build them in the downtown area and in neighborhoods. The house I'm currently in is from the 50s. And so I think if we can provide more modern housing, it will really help people, especially with heat waves and with making better energy efficiency. So it's important for a multitude of reasons to create new housing in our city.
Thank you. What are your views and your experience with the tiny house village on East 60th Street?
Yeah, I was surprised the first time I saw it because I'd always heard about it in the neighborhood and I'd heard about people for or against it, but just being able to see it in action was great because I could actually get an idea of the amount of people it was serving, which still is not everyone. But when I was in that neighborhood one time, I talked to someone who was asking how to get to it, and they're only a few streets away, but they weren't sure where it was. And so I think it's a good start, but making sure that people can get housing available wherever they are, rather than forcing people to move into the same neighborhood. It's a step back towards housing, but if we don't provide housing for everyone, I think it falls short. And so I also think that the city should not force people to make that choice, whether it's because they have family members or pets or drug dependency that is stopping them. The city is currently trying to fine people for being homeless, and I think that we need to have a housing first approach before we force people off the street, because so many more people have become homeless during the COVID-19 pandemic. We need to provide more housing than ever now, and resources for people to really get back up on their feet, because I see how easy it is for anyone to lose their housing or their job or their safety net around them. And so the city needs to help more than ever for having those resources for everyone.
Thank you. Nolan, do you support the 8 years of property tax forgiveness for developers who build market rate housing in Tacoma?
Yeah, I've heard of this before, how there's two different versions, whether it's 8 or 12 years. These two were designed to make it easier to build homes and make them more affordable for people. But I think after those 8 years, we need to have a plan for how to keep houses affordable. For the first time ever during the COVID pandemic, we had a eviction moratorium that actually allowed people to stay where they were and have a chance to keep rent at a stable level, as well as housing prices for a little bit before they shot back up again. And so figuring out a way to work with homeowners and renters and the property developers to keep things affordable after 8 years, I think is even more important than those first 8, because after we build it, we need people to live in them as well.
Thank you. How can we ensure safe shelter for everyone in Tacoma?
Yeah, I think safe shelter is something that everyone defines for themselves. You can feel safe in your house, or you can maybe feel safe in one of the city provided shelters. But I think everyone has the same needs for like a sense of security and for that the shelter and the food and water to be provided where they need it, so that people don't have to travel over for services in the city. And it comes back to that hierarchy of needs where everyone has the same comforts that they would like. And so if we can provide those for people, I think that's great. And I think the city needs to be working on everything we can do to make it feel more safe and welcoming wherever people stay. And so, I think that's the steps that our city needs to make. And we also need to work with other cities to make sure that they have safe places for people to stay, so that it doesn't all come down to our city for providing those for the entire neighborhood or for the entire nearby region. I really think Tacoma is a great place, and I think even though it's sort of a secret, we need to show it to people that live here.
Thank you. How will you engage and work alongside communities that speak additional languages beyond English?
Yeah, so I think the city has translators available, but I know that's not everything. For reaching out to people and outreach, it's about having that sense of community. And so I think representation on the city council for people that live in those communities and speak those languages and have a history is more important than anything. You can't just solve that instantly. It's something that it needs to develop a relationship. And so I think slowly we'll be able to make city council a approachable part of government for everyone to get involved in. And yeah, we need to encourage every chance we have to outreach and make sure we're not just serving the whitest parts of Tacoma, but also like widening what we do in every single facet, from supporting businesses to being there with schools and transportation to serve every single neighborhood.
Thank you. What are some specific issues in District 4 that distinguish it from other city council districts?
Yeah, I definitely think District 4 is different from the freeway to the bottom of 56, and from the other side of the freeway to Swan Creek. We have so many different neighborhoods and people to represent. It's not easy summing that into a few sentences, but I think we all have similar needs for better. The affordability of this district is great, and it has allowed so many different people to live here. But we need to make sure to serve those people, from the schools to after schools programs, as well as the ways people get around. I think our transportation system falls short in this neighborhood, only serving the main arteries of streets and not providing service to side streets where people may live. And so we need to make sure that people can actually get around the district, as well as doing more for our neighborhood beauty. I believe like we have so many different styles and things we do in this neighborhood, from just little gardens to the nearby like food banks, making sure that it's all connected and has a sense of the city supporting it is really important for the city council to do.
Thank you. City plans regarding climate change do not deal with vehicle emissions, our single largest source of greenhouse gases. What does the city need to do to reduce emissions?
Yeah, a lot of transportation emissions I've seen come out of the port with the trucks that are leaving, and they go on I-5 through the middle of our city. And so we have emissions just spewing out of there, and even trucks sometimes coming through my neighborhood. And so having a better system to actually support the trucking that goes on there, because it is there, and I see it when I go down to the Port of Tacoma that truckers don't have a place to sleep or park, and so they're sort of spread out into the city. And so serving that need to make sure that that transportation is built thoughtfully, and we don't just have 60-mile-an-hour streets through the middle of our neighborhoods is important with transportation design. And I think we can reduce the amount of people in the road by increasing funding for transportation, whether that's having more rapid buses that come more regularly. People will actually start to trust the system for getting to work, as well as supporting the Sounder train to get to other cities so that you're off the road. During rush hour, it's actually a lot faster to get to Seattle that way, as well as connections to other cities outside of Seattle. Currently, there's no public way to get down to Olympia or many other places without paying a large amount. And so if the city can support that as much as they support the current streets that keep getting expanded with constant construction, I think we would be able to reduce the amount of people on the road. So thanks for that question.
Thank you. I'll ask you one more question and then give you a chance for a closing statement. GRIT stands for Growing Resilience in Tacoma. Do you have any other suggestions for increasing resilience and supporting all Tacoma residents?
Yeah, I know our city has been very resilient during the pandemic, providing for our essential workers who were out there every day doing their job, whether it's grocery workers or healthcare staff or the many others that were celebrated at the reopening party yesterday. But I think we should keep supporting them after the pandemic for everything that they've gone through, making sure that that's recognized and that we actually have things like hazard pay that have previously been voted down for when they have to do work like this. We need to make sure that those work shortages are accounted for, and that I think also supporting the local businesses in our community that have suffered from this. I know many close after like 7 or 9 at night because they can't afford to pay their employees after that, and so our city sort of just shuts down after a certain amount of time, and it's either bars or chains. And so being able to make our city more available at night would be nice, as well as making sure that people can actually get around the city, I think would better our grittiness rather than having everyone stuck at home. It would be nice to start seeing familiar faces out there again.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, I like that acronym.
Thank you. Nolan Hibbert-Pelly is a candidate for City Council position 4. Thank you, Nolan, and thanks to all those who are watching. Thank you to TV Tacoma and to our timekeeper, Susan Eidenschink. So voters, read your voters pamphlet, go to vote411.org, where you can find answers to questions to all candidates running for office this time, and read the candidates' websites. Look for your ballot in your mailbox on July 16th or shortly thereafter, and use one of the 46 drop boxes in our county, or mail your postage paid ballot as soon as possible after you receive it.